Hi, this is Elaine Sebastian with my Microsoft Word videos. Well, now it's Microsoft Excel videos. Welcome to the first tutorial on Excel. We're going to be starting with the Home tab, and the document we'll be using, at least for a few videos, is the Lemonade stand. So I've opened up a fresh copy of this. Let's get a little familiar with the Excel program and see what it looks like. When you have this document open, you will notice that there are many things similar to Word, and there are some differences as well. You still have your quick access toolbar. You can still see the title of your document at the top, and you still have the ribbon, and it still has tabs. The first 2 or 3 or 4 even are the same tabs as you have in Word, so nothing really scary there or unfamiliar. You can still do things such as hide your ribbon, and you can get help, and you can minimize or restore the size of your document or close documents. And if you have more than one open, in order to look at more than one at a time. Now, at the bottom, you'll see something that's a little different. We still have this toolbar at the bottom, and we see our status at the bottom here, ready mode, and this shows macros, which is a little more advanced than is on the beginner test for Excel, but it's something that you normally don't worry about in Word, though it definitely is possible. But on the other side, you can change your view. You can, let me get rid of this. You can still zoom. So that's a lot of similarities, but it's once we move inside that everything's kind of changed. So let's look at right above this toolbar at the bottom. You notice lots of little tabs, and we call these tabs, but these are actually called different worksheets of your document. And an entire Excel file is called a workbook. So that makes sense, as in real life, worksheets come together to make up a workbook. And this one has quite a lot of worksheets in it, and we can navigate through the different sheets by clicking on each one to get to them. Our scroll bar, left to right scroll bar, is expandable, so yours might be covering some of the sheets, and if that's a problem, you can use these little navigation arrows at the bottom to jump around, and then you can scoot slightly to the left or right, or all the way to the ends of all the sheets that you have. So I'm gonna move this scroll bar so it's kind of medium. And now let's look at what's in the actual contents, the main part of your screen. So the worksheet I'm going to be in is Final Product, and this is really pretty. It's Annie's Awesome Lemonade Stand. So Annie is running a lemonade stand and needs to keep track of how much her employees are selling, as well as the hours that they've worked. So in this document, or throughout these videos, what we'll be doing is trying to learn how to do everything that it was done to this sheet, how to make it look so nice, nice and pretty. And so I've given you this incomplete sheet, the next tab, and your goal is to get it to look like this. So let's start off with the Home tab, and just like in Word, you're going to see these same sections. You see your clipboard section, font, and alignment. And those things, there are a few more options in Excel that aren't possible in Word, but other than that, there's a lot of overlap, so a lot of this should be review. So in order to explore these things, let's take a look at our Final Product page, and let's look at this big title box. And what you'll notice is I gave this page a nice, large, prominent title. So it has a color, It has a certain font, and the font has a color. If we go to the incomplete sheet, we don't have those things. Don't worry about the picture for the moment. But it's just bland, boring, regular Calibri font, and that's so bland. So let's see how to add, to make all these changes to, this title. So let's go to the incomplete sheet, and the very first thing really that I noticed was the size, and it would help to be able to talk about the size of this sheet if we knew what a cell was. So a cell is each of these little baby rectangles within Excel. And each cell has a different address. So a cell is given a name by the combination of its column, up and down, and its row, which is side to side. So this cell I'm currently in is A1. If I click here, I'm in D3. So this is just like a Cartesian coordinate system, but it's kind of almost backwards from what you're used to, I guess, in the up and down direction. So right now, this one little title is just in A1. But I am not limited to just one cell. Here's something cool I can do. I can take a bunch of cells and make them one giant monster cell, which is what we've done here. This cell, this is not just, well, it is just one cell, but I put together all the way from A1 down to M5. So let's do that first. So go to your incomplete sheet, and from A1 to M5, that's a big area. So I'm going to click and drag to highlight all of these cells. And if I were to count them, I currently have highlighted 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then all the way from A to M. So I guess that's, 13 or 14 wide. So this is not quite 100 cells, but about 80 or so cells. And I'm just going to squish them all together to make one giant cell. And so to do that, I'm going to go to this alignment category or section, click on this button, merge and center. And what happened? All those cells are one big cell. Okay, so we've created this monster cell. Let's go back and do kind of the fun part with it, the formatting. So if you remember from Word, format is what? Let's make a little list down here. Format included the color of our text, the size, the font. You could even have things like a fill behind the words, things like bold and italics, and underline, of course, can't forget underline, superscript, subscript, and all those things are still part of the format here. So let's go ahead and apply those. Let's see, we wanted, what font is this? This is Comic Sans. Okay, so let's add, okay. Comic Sans, you know how to increase the font, I hope, if you've watched my Word videos. And then color, so the fill for the background of the cell is right here, the little paint bucket. We can go with yellow. And then for the text, that's right there. This blue, I think, is what was used in the previous. Now, what else are we missing? Let's see. It does not have an outline on the cell, but you know, there are things you could add if you wanted. So maybe you want to bold the words and italicize or underline, whatever you want to do. There's a double underline right here. So just kind of mess around with it and see what you like. Okay, I like that. Yeah, that looks good. Okay, remember these buttons can bump your size up and down, and this last button here will add a border to your cell. I don't know if you can tell the difference. Let's play around with it. Look, I'm going to go highlight these down here just to show you. If I click border, now it put a border underneath on mine. So we're going to explore this some more. In order to get rid of that border, I'm going to have to click erase border. And I get a little cute eraser. Oop, go away. Okay, and I hit escape to get rid of that. We'll come back to borders later. Right now let's talk about alignment. So in the alignment section, I have, I have top, middle, bottom, and then I have left, center, and right. Okay, so and some of these have shortcuts. If you hover over their name, you can see what those shortcuts are. Okay, and then in alignment, you can also use the promote and demote, but that'll mess up this alignment. I find these are easier to use, the center, left, right, all that stuff. Next, you have rotation of your text. So that's fun to rotate your text. And then you can actually go to, if you're feeling picky, you can go and format cell alignment. It'll bring up a dialog box for the picky people, and you can actually specify a degree to which your text is rotated. So positive if it's, I guess, above the horizon or the horizontal, and so zero is your normal, your flat, and then you can always go and change it up to positive 90 or minus 90. Okay, so let's put that back on 0, so it's normal. Okay, so see, that's some interesting things that you wouldn't be able to do in Word. Let's go back and catch some of the things under font that we didn't look at. So notice all these nice borders here around pretty much everything, each main category in the table. So let's go ahead and add these things to this table. And before I do that, let me zoom out so I'm matching in that sense. And so there's one big border around all the people's names, around this whole row, around this section here, which doesn't exist on the other page. So let's start adding those. So let's highlight. Maybe I want my whole title row to have a border, and I go. Let's see. It's giving me an eraser here. So if I just click this button, I'm on eraser mode. It's going to remember whatever mode you previously used. So if you had done bottom border before, it's going to be a bottom border button. If you change it to all borders, it's going to change it right here. And this is kind of weird. It's a fairly unique button in that the actual button changes depending on what setting you have applied to it. So you just have to be careful when doing the borders, because if you're not careful, you can end up with this where you have a border around every single cell, and that's maybe not something you want. It's a little busy looking for me. So what you can do then is go in and you can say erase border. And in that case, you'll get an eraser, and you can go through and erase. And then that's a bit tedious. So then you go back. Now, if I hit Control Z to undo, put them back. Okay. Another way I could have done this was to go back and change no border, and then it'll apply no borders instead. But then look, it erased this border right here. So I do find that the way borders are done can be a little tricky, almost a little awkward, the way it's set up. But you just have to learn to play with it, and it'll get a little easier. So for example, let's say I wanted to set off this column because it's special. I can do, now I could put all borders to put every cell, and like I had said, that's a little much, so undo. But there are other good options too. So if you click on one of these, bottom, top, left, or right, it only puts the border where you specified within the selection. So if I highlight a bunch of cells and I just clicked on top border, that means only the top border, you see it's right here, only the top border for that whole section, not for every cell in it. So you just have to get used to the lingo when it comes to these borders and just practice. Other things you can do, you can draw borders by hand, and so you get this cute little pencil and you can go around just putting borders where you want. So that can be useful if you're going for a certain aesthetic. I'm going to undo those though. Okay. And you can hit escape to get rid of the little pencil. Other things, by going to line color, you can change the color of the border. Okay, so now it's orange instead. And undo. And then styles right here. And let's see, where's thickness? Style. You can change the thickness by going to style. Now, if you go to more borders, you can get even more picky, and you can do a little preview here, color here. So it's really similar to drawing. I don't think they have anything new in this dialog box. All right. So that was borders. Let's just launch the dialog box and look at everything that's in here to make sure we're not missing anything. The very first is number. We will come back to that. Alignment we've talked about. There are a few other options in here that we also need to come back to. Font, you know all about font. The only other thing in the dialog box that's new is strike through. Superscript, subscript is to make it tiny and go to the top, or tiny and go to the bottom. Let's look at the strike through. Voila, there's a strike through. Let me get rid of that. Here's the preview right here. Border we saw. Fill. Now let's look at fill, because there's a little more you can do with fill. You can do a color pattern instead. So let's do blue. There's blue and yellow, and we could switch it up, blue and red. So pattern color means what's the one in the pattern. All right, that's a little much on the eyes, but just it's good to know that these possibilities exist. You can go with no color. Here's your preview. Fill effects. You can actually put a gradient. So let's put this gradient in here. Ooh, that's nice. Except we can't read the words now. And let's go back to it one more time. More colors, and you can pick from the picky people palette. And that's going to be it for that. Now protection, we'll come back to that as well later. All right, now let's look at some numbers, because the great thing about Excel is it's good at crunching numbers, processing numbers, doing math that you don't want to do. So let's look at this down here, and let's compare to our final product. These boxes looked really nice and set off, and also notice it's a merge of 3 different cells, B19 through B21. So let's do some moving. I'm going to click and drag all these, and I'm going to scooch my cursor over to that black border. And you see how I have this four-pointed arrow, or four-sided arrow, and I'm just going to scooch these down. Okay, so I've scooted them down. Then I'm going to grab these two, and I'm going to drag those down to give it a little space as well. And just be very careful so let me show that process again. I highlight the cells I like, or that I want to move. Then I need to make sure my cursor looks like the 4-pointed arrow. Do not go to this corner here, and don't just click inside, because then you're just selecting. You need to highlight and then go to the black border, but not this corner. And really, this is just a simplified copy I'm sorry, really it's a cut and paste. You're cutting and pasting these cells and you can move them wherever you would like them to go, with some exceptions, of course. If something is already there, then it could lead to some problems. All right, at this point, now I'm going to make these bigger by just merging a bunch of them. So let me make a big cell for this text right here. I highlight 3 of them. Now, I can merge and center, but let me undo that. There's other options as well. I can do something called merge across. Let me show you merge across. Let's scroll down to some blank cells. Let me highlight a bunch, and merge and center, remember, creates a monster cell. Undo. Okay, so I undid that. Now, merge across creates a bunch of big, long cells, so it only merges all the ones in the same row. Next we have merge cells. Okay, so that's the same thing as the first one, but it just did not center the text in it. You can't see that because there was no text. And lastly, unmerge right there. Okay, so now they're back to being unmerged. All right, so the best option here, I think merge and center is perfectly good. I mean, I could just merge, but merge and center just merges and centers the text. Now, that's great and all, but the actual text in this box is supposed to say wage per hour of work, and I can't read that. Well, why not? It's, I mean, I see it here. This is called the formula bar, so I see it in my formula bar. I don't see it in my cell. I only see the middle. And that's because the text is too wide to fit in the cell. Well, luckily there's a really simple option for that. You're going to go back to the alignment category or section and click wrap text, and it'll just start a new line every time you have too many words to fit in the cell sideways. So it'll say, oh, all right, I'm going to kick the word hour to a fresh new line. So there we go. Now we can read it. And this number 8, I'm going to merge and center, and there we go. He looks a lot more dignified, just with a nice big cell. And let's come back to these 2 because we also want them to look nice and fancy, but we'll talk about a shortcut for that. All right. Also, let's add a border to these 2. So I highlight both, and I think I'm going to go with maybe all borders. And notice they're still orange. They're still thin. And so I can go in and play with those things. And let me change it to black. Let me change it to a nice thick border. And when I do that, it gives me the pencil, remember? But instead of having to click, 8 times or however many, I'm going to hit escape. Now I'm going to go back and highlight and just click the button, and it did it for me. So that's one of those weird things that you have to get used to with borders. Like I said, they can be a bit tricky. Okay, now I'm going to use a little trick called the Format Painter, and you should remember this from Word, but if not, watch the magic. Click on the Format Painter. Voila. I've transferred the format of this cell to this one. Now, in Excel, I told you all these things right here, color, size, font, fill, they are counted in the format, but you have new things that are in the format in Excel, and those include the fill of the cell. These include the alignment. They include the merge size and wrap text as well, and also the number formatting if you have number formatting or other types of formatting that we haven't talked about yet. So it's a few additional things in Excel. Let's finish off. Remember, we can double click the Format Painter if we want unlimited uses of it, but we don't want that. So I'm going to undo what I just did, hit escape to get rid of the little marching ants you saw there. And there we go. This table's looking really nice and professional now. Okay, Other things, let's go check our dialog box and see how much of it we have now gotten through. Number, we're going to come back to. Alignment, we just did. We went over wrap text. Font, we've been through that. Border and fill and protection, we're not going to worry about till another tab in a later video. All right, one more thing. Let's look at this number 8. And that is 8, let's look at the unit. Well, that's wage per hour. So that's actually dollars and cents, right? Or $8 an hour. Now, there is a particular format in Excel that will put a $sign for you, and you will never ever have to worry about the $sign. So go to this number section, and you're going to click on this $sign. And when you do that, you might have noticed this jumped from the word general, there's general, to the word accounting. And there are other options as well. You can go to currency, and that's another way to keep track of money. So this is another aspect of the format in Excel, and it has to do with really numbers and dates. So things like just your regular text, anything that's a string, meaning it's just text, it's not, it's really just not a number, then that's going to be under the general format. So any of these cells with words in them, all general. But when it comes to numbers, we might instead want to keep them stored as a number, or we want to tell Excel, hey, that's actually a percentage, or that's actually a date. These things will allow us to quickly recognize dates times numbers to make them look a certain way if we're doing accounting, if we're keeping track of money, if we're keeping track of dates. We'll see lots of uses kind of unfold as we go through more videos and more uses of Excel. But for now, let's just look and see what we can do. So number tells Excel that this is a number. The numbers up here, however, notice they're in general format, but we could highlight them all. We could change them to number. And along with number, let me undo that, you can change how many decimal places you see. So you can add more, and Excel will just add zeros if there's nothing there. You can put fewer. You can add commas. Let's type a big number down here. I'm going to put just, oop, that's not a number. That is a letter. Okay, so let me just type a big number, and I'm going to tell it it's a number, and then I can add commas to it. I can change it so it's a percent. I can make it money instead. I can even change it to other currencies from around the world. Now, as with everything else in Excel, I can get more picky. So I can even make custom formats. I can I can go in here and tinker with all sorts of things with accounting. I can show even more decimal places than the 2, which is normal for money, right? The 2 decimal places to represent cents. But I can come in here and I can get other forms of currency. I can show that these are from different countries. So really cool things that I can do. And then just notice that currency is different than accounting. So let me go back to that number 8. Currencies here and accounting. Notice the only difference is that with accounting, it's going to push the symbol to the left of the cell and push the number to the right, whereas currency is just going to kind of smash them together. I will make it a separate video about other cool things that you can do with numbers, especially dates and times, but I don't want this video to drag on too long. So that's going to be it for today. Join me on my next video, the Home tab Part 2, which will resume with styles and finish off the Home tab. Thanks for watching, and be sure to check out my other videos.